All right, I'm getting a lot of information from people wondering, how do I find an agent or a manager? I'm outside of LA. How do I do this? Well, in 2026, there's a way, and my guest today, Clint Ross, did just that. So, Clint, I'm going to throw it over to you. How do you find a manager and agent, man?
Right. Great question. I appreciate you asking that, Ron. First of all, I just want to say thank you for the opportunity to be on your awesome podcast, man. I listened to it and followed your career, and you've done exceptional things. So, um, to answer your question, there's really kind of multiple ways I could talk about this. The first thing I would say, and this is a lot of times what people don't want to hear. I have to tell a lot of people what they don't want to hear in this business because it's been told to me. But one of the things about an agent or a manager to realize is that you don't find oftentimes a manager or an agent. Agent or a manager finds you.
Mm,
And a lot of people don't like to hear that because that goes against the grain of a lot of writers' mindset, which is I'm going to kind of make this happen, right? The way that I would say that you make it happen is by is the quality of your work. It's the quality of your work. And uh, very briefly, I'll tell you my journey, my story
yeah,
into
that'd be
landing
great.
representation. Um, Years ago, I'd say it was probably around 2001, 2002. I was listening, during the COVID time, listening to a lot of podcasts from writers that I admire, podcasts on filmmaking. And there were a lot of agents and managers that were coming on these podcasts. There was a lot of talking, a lot of information sharing going on during that time, and there still is. And I started hearing the same thing from these managers and these agents, which was what they were looking for. Obviously, they're always looking for up and coming talent. They're always looking to invest, and it is an investment. It's very tough for them, for these agents and managers, to just take a writer and just start getting them work. They have to have they have to have some heat around them, right? They have to be able to walk into a room or make a phone call or send an email, and there's something compelling in that email coming from that agent or that manager about this writer that no one has heard of, right? And one of the things that they were saying was, if you can create some heat around your product, around your screenplay, and around you as a writer, things like win a screenplay competition, and not just anyone. Like, if you can get in there and beyond take this with a grain of salt, but beyond quarterfinalists, okay, in like final draft, or the script lab or something like that, or the Austin Film Fest, if you can make it past a quarter round, you can query them. You can send emails. Like, they will read that, and they will look at that, these managers and agents, and because they know there's a little bit of heat around you, right? And from there, you're at least kind of some type of success is getting them to open the email or pick up the phone, right? The last thing you want to lead with is, please read my screenplay. Like, don't, like, meaning, like, don't in the body of your text, your email, you're not trying to get them to read your screenplay. What you're trying to get is for them to consider you based off of any success that you've had. Okay. So for my own journey, when I was hearing that, I was like, okay, I'm outside of Hollywood. I mean, I knew people, but I didn't know. It was very, very tough. Uh, but it was winning things that got me into rooms. Okay. Like, I won in 2014 without a screenplay, just with the pitch of an idea of a concept. I won American Film Market, AFM's pitch contest out of 75 contestants, just with an idea. Everybody else had screenplays and attachments. It was crazy. And then I had a meeting with Cassie and Ellis, who did Sling Blade and Dallas Buyers Club. And, it was like crazy. It opened up a door, right? Because I won this pitch competition. So they were like, oh, there's some heat around this guy in the heart of Hollywood. Let's talk to him, right? But I didn't have a screenplay, so I wasn't ready. because I had to go write it, and then I lost the fire. And so once I started writing more, I realized maybe I should try to do what these agents and managers are saying. But what I did was I found a screenplay competition, Roadmap Writers, which the prize, if you can get a finalist or win, was not money. It wasn't necessarily notoriety, which does come. It was they they were one of the first screenplay competitions that were back in like 2022, 23, saying, we will put you in front of a rep. Our rep that we have is going to look and read at least the finalists' screenplays for both TV as well as feature. And so I was like, that's it. I'm going to go for that. I'm going to try to get a rep. But I didn't know if I'd win, but I knew I had a good script called Tower 9 about a backcountry ranger who, finds herself for the summer working in this position, and she's stationed in a fire lookout tower. But what she doesn't know is that she's in the vicinity of a predatory bear. So I wrote like the next Shallows or Crawl. It was like a creature feature, a contained film, So I was trying to write in budget. And darn if I didn't win the thing. I won the feature category. And before I knew it, I was talking with Zero Gravity, which was the rep that they said, we're going to pick somebody. And they didn't pick me. They picked the TV writer. And I knew they were. I knew it was just during this time. I just knew that I wasn't going to get it. She was a great writer too. And I'm so glad she got it. But I used that momentum to get kind of a little bit of a lesser company. They were still a boutique agency. And through the connections of Zero Gravity, there was some talk, and it was like, you're a good writer. This is a good script. You're going to find somebody. So it took a little bit of time, but then I ended up at Citizen Skull. And the Joey Tuccio at Roadmap was like, dude, you won our competition. I'm going to help you as much as I can. And so I got a champion behind me. And Joey was, a man of his word, and he did. And I ended up, but here's the thing I've learned, is the hustle is not over once you get a rep. Okay. Because I actually, with the rep that I had, I actually found myself getting more work on my own than I did with my rep. And I heard, now take everybody out there, take this, like, trust me when I say this to you. This is not a knock on my former rep. But I was listening to a podcast with a screenwriter, professional screenwriter, and his rep, and they were talking about how they landed with each other. And what this writer realized was that he was as the writer, you're very passionate about your project. And he had a former rep, and he says, I remember being on the phone with him, and I would be like, within a couple minutes, I'd just want to go to sleep. I was so bored, and like they never had updates. And he was like, as a writer, I started to realize this person is representing me in these rooms. And so what he did was he was like, I need to find a rep that matches my energy, who's representing me in these rooms or on email or on these Zooms or in these meetings, right? And he was like, so I found somebody that was just as passionate about their work as I am about mine. And I was like, that's it. I'm 2 years with this rep, and I don't feel like they're very passionate about my work and very passionate about their work in general, although they were a good person. And so I went back to Joey. I said, Joey, dude, I'm talking to Universal Studios. Like, I'm pitching projects. I'm talking to the head of Sony without my rep. This was what I did on my own. I'm like, I need a heavy hitter. I need a rep that's gonna be like, yeah, let's get you out there. And I landed with established artists with Geo at established artists, and Geo's that way, very calm guy, but he's great in a room, and we've been a really good pair. And that's what I realized, that it's not something you're locked into, it's tough to pursue. But for my own journey, I had to create some heat. And so that's where I would say there are many ways to do that, right? You could win competition. You can get a movie made. You could get a movie that you wrote that got made that maybe had a star in it, or maybe it got financing or something. Like those are wins. And if you can put them into competitions and you know screen not screenplay competitions, if you're just a writer, that's the path. But also getting your movies made, right? Those can be wins as well. And represent yourself until you can find someone or someone finds you who sees follow up film out of you, or three
Yeah.
or four or five or six films out of you, or
Yeah.
shows, right? Like that's how they're thinking, right? But it does take a little bit of time, just so you know, unless you have a successful film or a screenplay that sells at like a decent rate, or a film that gets made that does well. Just so you know, your agent or your manager, which agents often come after the managers, agents are your legal negotiators, while your managers are the ones who can set you up to get into the rooms, but they can't legally represent you. That's what agents are for.
Yeah. Yeah. And
You're,
particularly
you're hitting it if you got an agent and a manager.
yeah, yeah. In California, there was this weird law, weird in my mind at least, where that's the delineation, as Clint's indicating, a manager cannot actually negotiate on your behalf. An agent
Right.
can. So when people start wondering, plus a manager, they generally take on less people and they're more focused on your longevity in your career, basically because they
Exactly.
can't really negotiate for you. Whereas an
Yeah.
agent is really good for that moment when you got heat on you, as Clint said. That was the
Yeah.
other hard thing because I ended up getting my writing partner and I ended up getting a agent, and they were totally not helpful unless we got heat ourselves. Now, in some
Yeah.
degree, I understand it, but on the other hand, it you just felt like, dude, what are you doing kind of situation. But you
Yeah.
got to go in eyes wide open. You mentioned something about a competition, and I rarely do this, but I'm going to take a pretty hard stance as a filmmaker, not as a writer, as a filmmaker. I generally do not suggest competitions,
Hmm.
film festivals, all these things. It over the years, I've changed my mind to where they just seem like money grabs, and you, as the filmmaker,
Right.
are driving people to go to that thing, and you're putting butts in seats for their thing. You're not even getting the money. And then when I went and launched my film, all my friends and family were like, "Well, we already saw your film at the
Uh-huh.
film festival."
Yeah.
And I was
Yeah.
like, oh yeah, I guess you did." So,
Right.
but you mentioned as a writer, is that
Hmm.
the path? Competitions? Is that the path to
That's part of the question mark for writers, is I I would say, what is your goal, right? What did if you want management, why? Like if you want a manager is not a magic button, right? The hustling begins. Like you have to hustle almost more when you get a manager. You know, the the part behind a manager is you got to go where the fish is at, right? If you want to catch fish, you got to cast where they're at. Where are managers right now? What are they looking at? They're looking at people that have heat around them. Well, what's creating heat? You score well on the blacklist and you make it on top 100 writers in the blacklist. Well, that's being passed around Hollywood. Managers and agents, that's bragging rights. So I would say it doesn't necessarily have to be competitions. It's what can you brag about?
yeah, yeah.
You
I
know?
mean, I call it a lot of people call it different things.
Yeah.
And you're calling it heat, and you're exactly right.
Hmm.
I call it leverage. It is
Leverage is
what
great. Yep.
leverage are you
Hmm.
adding to the project? Because your project can't just have momentum. You can keep doing junk and get busy doing things. You have to get a little better each day. That creates true momentum, which then signals traction. Traction
Exactly. Yeah.
is leverage. Traction is winning a competition, showing up in the top 100 of the blacklist. Like you said, I knew another very well known filmmaker, writer, and he it was in Hollywood and would get sold, never produced. So he was a
Right. Right. Right.
really
Right.
good writer, but he actually left Hollywood. He had worked there, sold scripts, was able to work as a paid screenwriter, but never got produced. And he became known as, oh, you're the guy that never's been produced. And so he left there and
Yeah.
came to my area, and he wrote um, a little tiny film called um, oh my gosh, it just left me, but it was I'll remember it and I'll make sure I put it in the show notes. It
Yeah.
wasn't Facing the Giants, but it was Remember the Titans. So the
Oh,
writer of Remember the Titans, for God's sake,
yeah.
sold scripts along the way, but it got to a
Yeah.
point where he said he got a little bit of stink on him because he couldn't get produced. So
Right.
one of the things you said was to get some traction, to get some leverage, is to get produced. And you can do that
Hmm.
yourself. Now, I know what you're
Hmm.
thinking, dear listener, is that's a huge monumental task. Well, the whole freaking thing is, right? We're
Right.
audacious dreamers to believe we can go do filmmaking and make believe for a living. So
Yeah.
it's already a big idea. But if you go and produce a movie, and maybe it's not the one, right?
Right. Right.
It,
Yeah.
it's a budget conscious. You said that as
Hmm.
well, which I really like and is super smart. And listeners should hear that because you're writing to the market. It's not what you want; it's what the market is dictating. Is
Right.
there?
And
Please go ahead.
I was gonna say, to jump in there, you also realize that, getting a movie produced is a lot like, as a writer, it's kind of like hitting a home run.
Yes.
Like that's the goal in so many ways, is go, oh man, I no longer have that Easter egg, like, or that zero by my name. I got something out there that I can show from a manager standpoint. Okay. Managers make money when you are a ghostwriter too. When you're getting notes work, or that, like, somebody pays you $10,000 or $5,000 or $20,000 to deliver a first draft, and your name is maybe not even on the written by, but you're still working, right? And your manager is making money, 10% off of that 5,000 or that 10,000. And the more you do that, I mean, you can make a decent living just writing, just rewriting people's scripts and giving notes and things like that. And managers will accept that as well. So it doesn't always have to be that I was the writer of this film that became a film. It can be, man, I'm writing. I'm out there editing scripts. I'm doing this and doing this and doing it
Yeah.
while you're feeding to your manager. Your manager will go get you more work, and you can become known as that person. Hey, this is my go-to
Plenty of
person.
people. Right.
Right? And but
Right.
but like, I love what you're saying about Remember the Titans, because I don't think we necessarily want to just live there. I think we want to see our work up on the big screen, and that is very rewarding to have happen. But it is oftentimes very extremely tough.
It is tough.
So I would say that, think about that too, because your manager will talk about strategy in that first year with you. Like, what do you want to accomplish in this first year? I want to get a movie made. Okay, well, everybody else does as
Yeah.
well. But if you could say something like, I'd like to make like anywhere from 10 to $20,000 this year doing rewrites for people. While at the same time, I got my spec scripts out there that I've written, and you could be getting those out there to producers and production companies and studios, because that could hit too, right? And
Yes.
so it's like, it becomes, that's what's great about having a manager, is learning how to strategize about
Yeah.
your career. And if you look at it that way, it's like that you're partnering with this person, and we're going to make money together, and we're going to build a career together. then it's more, then this becomes a partnership, you know,
Yeah.
and you're helping each other out along the way. So that's the way I look at it too. It's just not, but how to get that manager is definitely a
That
big,
is a
big
huge
question. Yeah.
question. And again, you're proof positive of doing it. Roadmap writers is a great way to do it. Those people, Joey over there is sincerely, really, I believe, trying to help.
Oh yeah.
I want to ask you this question, even though my assumption is you might not know a ton about the subject, but you're in the hot seat, so I'm going to ask it anyways, Clint. I'm
Yeah.
going to come at you with it just because I've been getting this question so much, and I started to realize we need to address this. Okay, so I'm going to ask
Hmm.
you to help me to address this.
Hmm.
So, for whatever reason, I've had a ton of people just keep coming up to me about wanting to be a TV writer. Okay,
Hmm.
I want to make a series. That's what they tell me. And they've written the series, Clint. They've got 20 daggone episodes. They've written not just the Bible, they've got episodes written.
Wow. Yeah.
I I know that's not your main bailiwick, but
Hmm.
you don't get into this without knowing a little bit of television as well. Because who doesn't want to get into television, first of all? You get longer
Right.
character arcs. Everyone knows there's a lot of money in it right now that's consistent. It's not like the 80s when, they were just making peanuts. It's equivalent to what films are making. People don't realize what they're saying when I just want to get a series made. Like to me, film is hard enough. When you say series, it
Hmm.
I don't even know what to tell them except for you need to
Yeah.
redirect your dream. Do you have any help me kind of help the audience when they say I want to do a series, what does a writer have to do to negotiate
Yeah.
to get a series made?
Right. That's a good question, Ron. It's interesting. I think the older I get, the more experience I get, the more of a realist I've become.
Yeah, of course.
And not to be cynical. I don't think being a realist necessarily is cynical. I think there's a lot of wisdom behind it.
Yeah.
Um, but at the same time, realism is not meant to squash ambition. You know, I think for the writer out there who has 20 episodes, who's written a series, man, I think that's awesome. Like you've run the gauntlet of trying to create a universe, multi characters, character arcs, tracking plots and tracking characters and and the emotional beats and all that goes into what that's really like. The reality is, unless there is something sellable there, unless there is an idea that's going to jump off the page, I think some things are luck. I think some things, honestly, are answered prayers. I mean, I think there are people that come into your life that can lead to successful things, can lead to people all the time. I love watching baseball. I saw a guy first day in the major leagues hit a home run. And I'm going, that it does happen, right? But if it doesn't, it's an incredible craft advancement that you've done, right? You've written a series. Nobody can ever take that away, right? The next part is, can I do it again? Why is this not, analyzing, doing a post-mortem? I find a lot of people, this is like CEO of Google, I forget his name. He's like, I listen to ideas all the time. I listen to pitches all the time. And I have seen many, many people spend a lot of money and a lot of time on ideas that are never going to see the light of day.
Yeah.
And he's like, do you know what I encourage people to do now more than ever? Is to spend more time in the pre-mortem, which is think of your project already from the get-go is going to fail and figure out why it's failing.
Mm.
Okay. Figure out why it's going to fail before you go too deep into this. Okay. And there's a lot of wisdom in that, right? I mean, there's zeal without knowledge, right? And so, but be zealous be ambitious, but just also be realistic. And I think the older I get, the more my time, it feels shorter. So I'm trying to do more work on the front end in the
Yeah.
pre-mortem and trying to figure
Yeah.
out, and that's a little tough because the market's always moving, but you still have filmmakers like Obsession out there. They had a lot going for them on YouTube, right? They are already a lot of
Right.
eyeballs on some of their stuff, and they took a shot in this other area and did a festival. And there's Jason Blum in the audience who saw that movie, and that night they're on the phone with Focus. Like there's like things like that can happen, right? Just through ambition. But it's a balance. TV writing, from what I've heard, because I've literally sat in the room, and I know I have long answers here, but I realistically, I for most of the showrunners that I've talked to, and the ones that are going to pick this up, they're in Hollywood. I would echo kind of what they said. If you want to write TV, go to Hollywood,
Yeah.
because that's where the writers'
That's
rooms
it.
are at, and get
That's
on
it.
board as a writer. And your series could potentially do that. The strength of your writing could potentially get you in a writer's room,
Yeah.
but the likelihood of developing a series, extremely tough.
Yeah.
Outside of that, the outside Hollywood writer, TV writer, that's going to land more, I think, in the web series area,
Yeah. Yeah.
where it's
Yeah.
more financially manageable to actually court a pilot or even multi episodes, and launch through the YouTube space and other places like that.
Yeah. Yeah. I do think
That's my.
yeah, there could be other opportunities coming
Mhm.
that are a little bit different, but you got to be thinking
Right.
differently. If you're thinking traditional, it's not going to happen. I hate to break that to people.
Yeah.
So Clint, look, you've been doing this a while now, and you're smart to get into producing, which I know you've done. And you've
Hmm.
kind of also put your shingle out there to help a few others. As we kind of wind down, talk to me a little bit about kind of what you do for producing, and then what are you working on? Where can people find you? Where should they follow you? That kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Thanks, Ron. I have a new company called the Producing Room. It's the producingroom.com, where I do consulting. I have produced features. I've written and produced documentaries, narrative docs, like music videos. I mean, you name it. I've done a lot in this industry, for even directing. And one of the things that's taught me, my father was a very successful residential contractor, and I was a carpenter for years. And I saw him kind of, he started out as a plumber, then he became a mason, and then a sheetrocker, then he a framer. He did every position till eventually he realized, man, I could be making a lot more money as a contractor, and kind of working a little bit smarter, and not to downgrade blue collar work or anything like that. I've done it. I've done a lot of that. I started thinking about that as that's kind of became the producer role.
Yeah.
Like, I've studied film, cinematography, writing, directing, all that sort of thing, and I realized producing is a lot like contracting. Being a contractor, there's a lot of management. There's a lot of, like, I understand what you're trying to do, putting out fires, putting creatives together. How can we accomplish this goal? Because at the end of the day, you're building something, right? And I love to build a solid crew. I love for a crew to come on set and have fun, and enjoy this and build a community and build a family, and have a successful shoot, and crew that wants to be there because it makes the after party better. It makes the festival circuit. I mean, like, people get behind the film, the crew does, and when your crew gets behind the film, that's people that are getting behind your work, and that becomes so. Producing for me became an opportunity to bring a lot of like-minded people together and encourage an idea across the finish line. A lot of hard work, but that became in the producing sector, I kind of became more of like a creative producer and production producer.
Yeah.
So helping projects get off the ground, not as much on the financial side, but more on the, hey, here's how, like, let's strengthen the script. Let's go after these actors. Let's build a pitch deck. Let's start pitching this thing. You know, let's get it out there and let's build this crew. Let's do the
Yeah.
budget,
Yeah.
all that sort of thing, especially in Georgia, because I do a lot of Georgia producing. So I know the Georgia side and the tax incentives and things like that here as well. So anyway,
But
that's kind of the thing I do. So anybody looking for help with
yeah,
that, I could
absolutely. I'll make
offer
sure I
some
put the
advisement.
link in the show notes for sure. Um, just real quick, because I know we're winding down here, but just curious, how is Georgia looking, man? I mean, it sounds
Yeah.
what we're hearing in the media, it's almost like it's, downtrodden and worn, torn, everything's left. That's kind of what the
Yeah.
media makes it sound like. What's
Yeah.
it like down there?
Yeah. It's, Superman's filming here. Superman, the latest one, was it two? Um, so there's some big budget things like that. There is some TV. I had written I was a ghostwriter on a film called The Last Supper, $15 million film about Leonardo da Vinci painting The Last Supper, and that shot at Assembly Studios in Atlanta. It's interesting. They're opening up, especially at Assembly. They want indie filmmakers in
Of
to come
course.
into the
Yeah.
studios. They are lowering the cost of
Of
rentals.
course.
I mean, look at Obsession and Backrooms and things like that. I mean, they're seeing a lot of success.
Right.
Right now is a great time to start talk. Like when you see these sound stages, people get intimidated because they're huge, but they're breaking deals with indie producers on building on those sound
Oh yeah.
stages or coming in to do
Yep.
wall work and things like that.
Yep.
So you can find some really good deals. And so Georgia is starting to attract more indie filmmakers, especially in a lot of vertical filmmaking going on, a lot of
Of
faith
course.
and family friendly content through
Good.
Chick-fil-A and Trilith.
Yeah.
So there's still stuff going on here. Definitely died down when Marvel left, but still coming back though. There's a
Yeah.
lot,
No.
you know.
Well, that's where our hope lies, right? I mean, we're always hopeful that the future is going to be better than the past.
Yeah,
Like where they left, all of a sudden microdramas are like blowing up. Now it's not the same level financially, but it's still the
right.
work seems to be pretty daggone consistent.
Yeah,
Anyways, I appreciate you, Clint. It's been my pleasure to have a conversation here with Clint talking about writing, producing. We appreciate you all for listening. Please do like, subscribe so that Clint and I even know you're out there. Leave a comment, ask a question. I'll make sure again that I put Clint's information in the show notes, but I believe we're good to conclude our discussion with Clint Ross. I appreciate you being on. Get out there,
absolutely.
get your movie made, and remember, nothing is wasted. We'll see you on the next one.
See you guys.